At Byakusan High School, Yun Shirun appears to be the smartest student in the entire school. After a mock examination, a review was conducted and everyone is checking their answers. Suddenly, Shirun slams his hand on his desk. The loud bang instantly creates a shock and the classroom was in total silence. Without saying a word, he calmly walks toward one of his classmates, grabs a thick book from a nearby desk, and smashes it straight into the boy's face. The class is left frozen in shock as Shirun completely loses control. Everything got to this point as a result of what happened to him some days earlier. At that time, Shirun was known as a very quiet, calm and intelligent student. He solved difficult math problems with ease and spent every free moment studying. Education was the only thing that seemed to matter in his life. His mother, a famous academic lecturer, was rarely at home, so instead of spending time with her, Shirun preferred watching her online lectures to study. The videos were almost the only connection he had with his mom. One day at school, Shirun receives the gold prize in a mathematics competition. While the rest of the class applauds, he accepts the award without showing any excitement. However, another student named John Youngbin won the bronze prize. Although he tries to hide it, the result deeply hurts his pride. From that moment, he begins to see Shirun as a threat and plans to bring him down. Youngbin isn't just an ordinary troublemaker. He spends his nights partying with dangerous people and often relies on his older cousin, John Sukdae, to get whatever he wants, including illegal drugs. With his gang constantly surrounding him, he soon starts making Shirun's school life miserable. The bullying becomes more aggressive each day. Sometimes they throw shoes at him during class. Other times they steal his gym uniform or corner him in the locker room and choke him. Despite everything, Shirun refuses to fight back. He silently endures every attack because he believes getting involved will only distract him from his studies. Meanwhile, another student at the school has a completely different personality. Suho is known for sleeping through most of his classes. One day, members of the school's baseball team accused him of asking a girl out. They tried to beat, but before they can even finish talking, Suho knocks them down one after another with incredible speed, proving he is someone nobody should underestimate. Outside the school, Suho works as a delivery rider to support himself. During one delivery, he accidentally arrives at Shirun's apartment after mixing up the address. Instead of leaving immediately, he casually asks Shirun for a glass of water, and even makes himself comfortable inside the hallway. Shirun can only stare at this strange boy in complete confusion, unable to understand how someone could act so naturally inside a stranger's home. Not long after, another important student joins Byakusan High School. His name is Suk, a quiet student who always wears glasses and avoids drawing attention to himself. He was transferred because he had been severely bullied at his previous school. Hoping for a fresh start, Youngbin quickly learns about Suk's past and uses it against him. Knowing that Shirun only cares about his grades, Youngbin comes up with a cruel plan. He forces Suk to secretly stick a fentanyl patch onto the back of Shirun's neck during an important mock examination. The powerful painkiller is strong enough to make someone dizzy, nauseous, and unable to think clearly, ruining any chance of performing well. Terrified of becoming a victim himself, Suk has no choice but to obey. As the exam continues, Shirun suddenly begins feeling weak. His vision blurs, and he struggles to stay on his feet. Barely able to walk, he leaves the classroom and stumbles toward the restroom. There, he discovers the patch attached to the back of his neck and immediately tears it off. Realizing someone has sabotaged him, Shirun repeatedly slaps his own face, desperately trying to stay awake and clear his mind. Even when his teacher and classmates stare at him in confusion, he refuses to stop. He knows his exam has already been ruined by this action. After the test, the class begins checking their answers together. Every mistake Shirun discovers reminds him of what happened. The anger he has been suppressing for days finally reaches its limit. Without warning, he slams his fist onto his desk, creating a shocking scene in the classroom, causing everyone to keep silence. This time, Shirun refuses to remain silent. He grabs a heavy book and smashes it directly into Youngbin's face before driving a pin straight through one of his bully's hands. Then he wraps a classroom curtain around Youngbin's head and repeatedly beats him until blood stains the fabric. As Youngbin collapses onto the floor, bruised and bleeding, Shirun looks down at him and quietly says that he had warned him to stop. The entire classroom watches in horror. Shirun's calm expression has completely disappeared, replaced by someone who seems unable to control his rage. Even after Youngbin is defeated, Shirun continues moving toward him, ready to inflict even more damage. Just before he can cross the line, Suho steps in and pushes him away. He casually tells Shirun that enough is enough, hoping to stop the fight before something chaotic happens. But Sharon is still overwhelmed by anger. Without thinking twice, he grabs a nearby chair and rushes straight towards Suho, setting the stage for an unexpected clash between the two strongest students in the school. Seun thought everything was finally over after standing up to Young Bin. But instead of giving up, Young Bin became even more obsessed with getting revenge. Humiliated by his defeat, he refused to let the matter slide. This time he decided that if he couldn't beat Seun himself, he would bring in stronger fighters to do the job for him. Around this time, Seun's path crossed with Suho, the strongest student in the entire school. Unlike the other troublemakers, he spent most of his time working part-time jobs to earn money and take care of his grandmother. Even though everyone feared him, Suho preferred to stay out of other people's problems. At the same time, another student named Oh Beum-suk could no longer ignore what was happening. Ever since Seun became the target of the bullies, Beum-suk had been watching from the sidelines. The guilt of staying silent continued to weigh on him, and he finally decided to stand beside Seun instead of pretending nothing was wrong. Although he wasn't a fighter, he wanted to prove that he could at least support his classmate when it mattered most. As they spent more time together, the distance between them slowly disappeared. Suho's carefree personality was completely different from Seun's quiet and serious nature, but somehow they balanced each other perfectly. Beum-suk also found comfort in their company because, for the first time in a long while, he had friends who accepted him without expecting anything in return. Their friendship gradually changed Seun's daily life. Instead of eating alone, he began sharing meals with Suho and Beum-suk. Suho constantly joked about Seun's awkward personality, trying to make him loosen up, while Beum-suk simply enjoyed having people who treated him as an equal rather than looking down on him. Although Seun rarely showed his emotions, these small moments slowly brought warmth into the lonely life he had always known. However, their peaceful days didn't last long. Defeating Young Bin had made Seun's name spread beyond the school, and people far more dangerous than ordinary students had started paying attention to him. Young Bin's defeat should have ended everything, but instead it created a bigger problem. While trying to protect themselves from another attack, Seun, Suho, and Beum-suk accidentally clash with several men connected to a dangerous local gangster named Gil-soo. Unlike the school bullies they had faced before, these men were part of a real criminal organization. The situation quickly springs out of control. The trio finds themselves standing in the middle of a conflict they never expected. When they finally come face to face with Gil-soo, they expect him to take revenge immediately. Instead, he surprises them with a different demand. Calmly, he tells them to pay him 15 million won within 3 days as compensation for the injuries they inflicted on his men. At first, it sounds like a simple threat, but Gil-soo makes it clear that refusing isn't an option. If they fail to bring the money, he promises that the consequences will be far worse than anything they've experienced at school. Seun immediately understands how serious the situation has become, but taking on an entire criminal organization is completely a tough task. Seun knows that relying on their strength alone will only lead to disaster. If they want to survive, they need a smarter plan. Determined to find a way out, Seun begins investigating Gil-soo's operations. His search leads him to Young E, a clever girl who has some connections with the Gil-soo's gang members and understands how the organization works. Through her, Seun slowly uncovers the truth behind the gang's illegal activities. The more he learns, the more dangerous Gil-soo appears. He isn't just collecting money through threats. He runs illegal businesses and has connections that make it almost impossible for ordinary people to fight back. While Seun gathers information, Suho takes on the responsibility of protecting his friends. Every day brings another confrontation as Gil-soo's men continue pressuring them, refusing to let anyone lay a hand on Seun or Beum-suk. Even though he acts relaxed on the outside, he knows they are running out of time. Everything reaches its breaking point when Gil-soo decides to force their hand. He kidnaps both Suho and Beum-suk, leaving Seun completely alone. Instead of panicking, Seun stays calm and immediately begins piecing together every clue he has collected. With Young-e's help and a location-sharing app, he carefully tracks their movements and narrows down the place where his friends are being held. Rather than rushing in without a plan, Seun relies on the one weapon that has never failed him, his intelligence. He studies the situation from a distance and patiently waits for the right opportunity. Instead of confronting Gil-soo head-on, by creating confusion among the gang members and disrupting their plans, he slowly throws the entire organization into chaos. As Gil-soo struggles to regain control, Seun continues pushing his plan forward until the police finally arrive. The sudden intervention completely changes the situation. Gil-soo's operation quickly falls apart, and the gang is forced to scatter as officers move in. After everything they have endured, Seun, Suho, and Beom-suk finally believe that their biggest nightmare is over. For the first time in a long while, the three friends can breathe without constantly looking over their shoulders, and that life can finally return to normal. Throughout everything that has happened, Beom-suk has been carrying fears, insecurities, and painful memories that no one truly noticed. And before long, those hidden emotions will become far more dangerous than any enemy they have faced so far. After everything they went through with Gil-soo's gang, life finally begins to settle down. For the first time in a long while, Seun, Suho, and Beom-suk get to enjoy a normal high school life. They spend their free time eating together, visiting karaoke rooms, and joking around like ordinary teenagers. Even though Seun is still quiet, he slowly grows comfortable around his two friends. But while everyone else is moving forward, Beom-suk is still trapped by his past. One day, students from his previous school recognize him during an outing. They were the same boys who used to bully him at his former school. Without hesitation, they begin mocking him again, treating him as if nothing has changed. The memories he has tried so hard to forget suddenly come rushing back, and the fear he buried deep inside begins to resurface. As soon as Suho learns what's happening, he steps in without thinking twice. He confronts the bullies and makes it clear that they will never lay another hand on Beom-suk. Faced with Suho's overwhelming confidence and strength, the boys have no choice but to apologize for everything they did in the past. To everyone watching, it looks like Suho has successfully helped his friend move on from years of abuse. But Beom-suk doesn't see it that way. Instead of feeling grateful, he feels something completely different. Standing behind Suho while someone else solves his problems only reminds him of how weak he believes he is. Rather than feeling protected, he feels humiliated. The years of being bullied have left scars that no one else can see. Every time Suho protects him, every time Seun comes up with a solution, Beom-suk feels even smaller. Although his friends only want to help, he begins to see their kindness as proof that he can never stand on his own. The more they support him, the more insecure he becomes. Little by little, those painful emotions begin to change him. The gratitude he once felt toward Suho slowly fades away, replaced by jealousy and bitterness. He starts comparing himself to his friends, convincing himself that they don't truly see him as an equal. Even during their happiest moments together, Beom-suk can no longer enjoy their friendship the way he used to. As time passes, the bond between the three friends begins to fall apart. Beom-suk slowly distances himself from both Seun and Suho. Instead of spending time with them after school, he starts hanging around a different group of students. Unlike his old friends, these boys enjoy causing trouble. They spend their nights drinking, getting into fights, and living without worrying about the consequences. At first, Beom-suk only follows them around, but before long, he begins trying to fit into their reckless lifestyle. Seun quickly notices that something has changed. He can tell that Beom-suk is avoiding them, but he doesn't believe his friend has become a bad person. Instead, he thinks Beom-suk is simply feeling lonely and lost after everything they've been through. Seun believes that if they continue treating him like a friend, he'll eventually come back on his own. Suho sees the situation very differently. While he understands that Beom-suk has suffered in the past, he also believes everyone is responsible for their own decisions. From his point of view, no one is forcing Beom-suk to spend time with troublemakers. Every step he takes is a choice, and Suho refuses to make excuses for him. This difference in opinion creates a quiet disagreement between the two friends, even though both of them are worried about Beom-suk. Meanwhile, Beom-suk's insecurities continue to grow stronger. Every conversation with Suho feels like an insult, even when Suho has no intention of hurting him. Deep inside, Beom-suk convinces himself that Suho has always looked down on him. Instead of opening up about how he feels, Beom-suk allows his resentment to take control. His pain slowly turns into anger, and before long, he begins thinking about revenge. He secretly reaches out to local fighters with one goal in mind. He offers them money to ambush Suho and teach him a lesson. To make things even more cruel, Beom-suk chooses Suho's birthday as the day to carry out the attack. While Seun is preparing to celebrate with his friend, Beom-suk is quietly setting a trap behind everyone's backs. The person who once laughed beside Suho is now planning to have him beaten by dangerous strangers. With that single decision, everything changes. Suk's plan soon begins to spiral out of control. The fighters he hired to ambush Suho make a terrible mistake. Instead of finding their intended target, they run into Seun and assume he is the one they were sent to attack. Without giving him a chance to explain, they surround him and launch a brutal assault. Although Seun does everything he can to defend himself, he is hopelessly outnumbered. By the time the attackers leave, he is left badly injured and barely able to stand. After the attack, it becomes clear that the assault was never meant for Seun. He had simply been caught in the middle of Suk's plan. Even so, when people ask what happened, Seun refuses to reveal Suk's involvement. Despite everything, he still sees Suk as a friend. Instead of seeking revenge, Seun chooses to carry the burden alone. Before long, Suho learns what really happened. The moment he realizes Suk was responsible, his anger explodes. It isn't because Seun was attacked instead of him. What hurts him the most is the betrayal. Suk had turned against the very people who stood by him when everyone else abandoned him. Suho cannot understand how someone they trusted like a brother could make such a cruel decision. Suho still hopes Suk will come to his senses. Instead of accepting responsibility, Suk convinces himself that he has already gone too far to turn back. Rather than stopping the violence, he makes an even more shocking decision. He contacts the attackers once again and pays them for another assault mission. By this point, Suk is no longer acting out of anger alone. What began as the quiet insecurity of a lonely boy has now become a path of complete self-destruction. With every choice he makes, Suk pushes himself further away from the people who cared about him the most, setting the stage for a heartbreaking ending. Suho finally decides that he can't ignore the situation any longer. Hoping to end everything before it gets worse, he goes to meet Suk and confront him face to face. Even after everything that has happened, Suho still believes they can settle things themselves. He wants answers from the friend, but Suk secretly arranges another ambush. As soon as Suho arrives, dozens of hired fighters surround him from every direction. It is no longer a simple fight between classmates. It is a carefully planned attack. Even while facing overwhelming odds, Suho refuses to back down. He throws himself into the battle and begins taking down one attacker after another. Every punch and every kick pushes him closer to his limit, but he refuses to surrender. Despite being heavily outnumbered, he continues fighting with incredible determination, leaving his attackers stunned by his strength and resilience. As exhaustion finally catches up to him, Suho's movements begin to slow. The attacker sees the opportunity, and before he can react, he is struck from behind. More blows follow as the group overwhelms him completely. At the end, Suho is left lying motionless on the ground after suffering devastating injuries. While all of this is happening, Seun knows nothing about the tragedy unfolding around him. He focuses on finishing his exams, believing that life will finally return to normal, and he can spend time with his friends again. Not long after the exam ends, Seun receives the heartbreaking news that Suho has been rushed to the hospital. Without wasting a second, he runs there as fast as he can. When he arrives, the sight before him leaves him speechless. Suho lies unconscious in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines that keep him alive. The boy who always stood in front of everyone else is now completely helpless. For the first time, Seun can no longer hide his emotions. Sitting quietly beside his best friend, he breaks down, overwhelmed by grief and guilt. No matter how intelligent he is or how carefully he plans, there is nothing he can do to wake Suho up. Meanwhile, Suk is also forced to face the consequences of his actions. However, justice never truly arrives. His influential father uses his power to bury the entire incident before the truth can become public. Evidence disappears, witnesses are silenced, and every effort is made to protect the family's reputation. Rather than allowing his son to answer for what he has done, he arranges for Suk to leave the country, sending him overseas before the authorities can take action. With Suho trapped in a coma and Suk gone, the friendship that once gave Seun a reason to smile comes to a heartbreaking end. Nothing remains of the happy days they spent eating together, laughing after school, or supporting one another through difficult times. Eventually, Seun was transferred to a new school, leaving behind the place where he met the first true friends of his life. Although he carries the same calm expression as always, the experiences he has endured have changed him forever. The loneliness he once escaped has returned, along with the heavy guilt of believing he couldn't protect the people who mattered most. The season closes on a bittersweet note. There is no celebration, no sense of victory, and no perfect ending. Instead, It leaves us with the image of a quiet boy walking into an unfamiliar school, carrying emotional scars that will never fully heal. Seun once believed that intelligence could solve every problem if he stayed calm and thought things through. But after everything he has lost, he finally understands that some wounds are far deeper than strategy can ever fix, and not every battle has a happy ending.